Hello everyone, welcome to this week's lap guide tutorial. This is for week 10 at VIR for IMSA, and we'll be using a Mercedes for this hot lap, so let's have a look around. So VIR, we've got quite a short run up to turn 1 because obviously the braking zone comes at you quite fast here. You see we've just crossed the start line now, and already it's already marked out for us. You've got the 5, 4 and 3 boards here, for example. With T1, quite easy to overshoot turn 1 because of how the boards are. You'll probably think, oh, I can aim at the 1 or 2 board and get away with it. Kind of a normal amateur mistake to do. So the big thing I would recommend for T1, you're aiming, see where the track falls away here, falls away into the braking zone, which is actually around the 3 board. So between the 3 and the 2 board, get up to the outside, right up against the white line. Between the 3 and the 2 board, you want to, I lift off and then brake into turn 1. I found that the most consistent to slow the car down and also roll speed into turn 1. Driver preference, hot lap, 2 board in qualifying you probably get away with. But normally in the race, I would probably recommend around here. So just before the 2 board. Braking wise, braking a nice straight line. Very key here, you'll see I actually get the brake up to about 90%. I'm just trying to hold it around that. Just because if you go 100% brake, you do run the risk of getting that ABS a bit too aggressively. And what happens then is the car just understeers a little bit at the first, at the initial apex. And then with how turn 1 wraps back on itself, as soon as you miss the inside curb and you're not close to it, you just get loads and loads of oversteer on exit, and you lose so much time because of it. So it's very key you can keep the car always rotating into turn 1. So if you're 100% brake, you're not going to have that and you're going to go straight. But turning in wise, you want to be quite aggressive on the way in. So you want to be aiming to get very, very close to this this concrete curbing here, just before the curb. So you'll try to brake it all the way in. You see we're quite aggressive on the way in, down to second. You want to miss the curb initially and try and get to it where the actual yellow and green curb starts. On this lap, I just about get to it now. I'm probably a little bit away from it if I go to far chase. See, normally you'd probably want to have your right wheels just around where my cursor is here. Just helps rotate the car. On this lap, I miss it, so then I have to slow the car down a little bit more to get the rotation. But this would be absolutely fine as well to get away with. It didn't really hinder the lap time. But it's very key. You trail brake it. I'm still middle of the corner. I'm still trail braking. I don't get on the power till realistically this yellow and green actual curb disappears, and you get on the power just before you get to the end and where the white line begins here. Very key. I build the power up to about 70%, 65-70%. The biggest thing I would say with turn 1 is just be nice and patient on the exit. It's so easy to get on 100% power around now, and the car just oversteers like hell on the exit. You lose so much time, and any sort of oversteer and slip here, you actually then get really loose into 3 and 4 coming up when you actually load the car up. So it's very key just to keep the car nice and smooth and be very, very patient on the power. As you can see here, I'm holding. I don't get 100% power till I can actually get the steering lock off. That's the biggest thing I would say. Just be nice and patient until you get that steering lock off, then 100% power. And you should, when you come away from the corner, the exit T1, you should still be aiming to be here. Best way, your right wheel should just be next to or touching this concrete here. From here, middle of the track, so into 3 and 4. It's kind of an awkward way of doing this corner. You can do it in 2 ways. You can go in quite aggressive, so if I pause it here, so you can either go in how I've done on this lap, which I aim for the middle seam. You kind of can't see it in the replay, but when you're driving you probably notice it a bit more. There's a seam here where my cursor is. So you can go for the middle. Or there's some people I know I saw in the GT3 official week a few weeks back. They were driving in even deeper and aiming for the outside runoff. For me personally, I find this the nicest. So middle of the track, nice and smooth on the brakes, slowly building up. But the main thing is, because the car's straight, I can just keep the car rotating to the corner. If you're out here and you're driving in a bit more deep, 1, you've got to use more brake initially. 2, because of that, you're going to be possibly in the ABS a bit more. And then 3, that's going to hurt the rotation at the apex over here, where my cursor is. In the middle of the track here is quite nice, because it gives you this nice balance of rolling in speed, but also nice rotation the entire way through the corner. Trail brake in. You see, we're not really out far wide if I could chase. Half a car width away from the outside curb. I just found using this curb, for me personally, I just found every time I used it, the car would hop and then get really loose at this point here on the way in. So, driver preference, by all means try whichever way you prefer. I always just preferred it being a little bit tighter here. You can almost see what I was on about as well here. Just trail brake it in. You see I just let it coast all the way into the actual corner itself. Pick up the power as soon as your left wheels are just next to the curb, so midway around the corner. Again, you want to balance the power initially. I get on it like 90% to hold it, then 100. I find if you get to 100% like straight away, to see the car here gets a little bit loose. If you do that at 100% power, you can imagine it just throws the car again a little bit wider, which then means you're running the risk of 1, being out here in the dirt and dipping a wheel, and 2, then having to come back onto the track, and then when you try and brake for the next sector, it makes the entry here so hard. So you've got to be nice and smooth and keep it nice and clean on the exit here. Use all the runoff, and straight away then you're into sector 2, so like the twisty part of the lap. Braking point for this, kind of a nice easy reference that I always like to use. So where the runoff here ends, so now this way you'll be lifting off and braking. Smooth brake, about 50%, roll it in. There's 2 ways you can do this. You can go around the curb or over the curb, but you can't like half and half commit to it. You have to fully commit to the curb or fully commit around it. You can't just nibble the curb. If you do that, the car like hooks into it and then like oversteers on the way in, and then because of that it just slides all the way through the first part. So pick what you want to be comfortable with and just go with it. For me, I've always preferred this, so I always aim for the curb here. So the biggest thing, you aim for the middle part of the curb, not the first part. You aim for this part here where my cursor is. And you see, on the throttle already, you balance the throttle as you go over it. If I go to chase, you'll see. If I go to about here. Just your left wheels are just straddling over the curb into the grass. Your right wheels are fully on the tarmac, on just over the actual concrete here. What you want to do is you want to just balance the throttle all the way through until you land. You see here that the car like bobbles up and down a little bit. So you just got to be a little bit wary of that, because that can cause you to lose a bit of traction when you try and get back on the power again. So just be nice and patient with the throttle over the curb. And the car, you should land pretty over to the left hand side. If I go chase again, you'll see. You've got this like line here, over to the left hand side, which then means we can set up for the right, the 2 rights coming up. If you're here, 1, you've gone in too fast, but 2, it then makes this corner so tricky, and you always, if you're tight here, you run out wide at this point where my cursor is, where the runoff is, and it's just a horrible sector then. Very key you keep it over to the left hand side or the middle, so you can maximise the double right coming up. Then we go into the right. I lift off and just do a short shift. That's how I prefer to do it. You can just keep it in second, just rev it out. Driver preference, I always preferred this because I know when I've done this, I can get back on the power once I've gone through the dip itself. Key thing here, do not dip a wheel on this outside curb. If you dip a wheel out here, the car drags and pulls you off the track. So here you see I'm just keeping the car, throttle stays the exact same, like 75%, 80% all the way through. And you see I'm keeping myself away from this outside curb, and I'm already trying to aim for the next curb coming up on the right. Towards the end, once you let the car drift out a little bit to maximise the entry, at this point here you can get away with. But if you're dipping a wheel on the curb here, you're going to be off the track. Very, very important that you let the car just drift out to about here. The whole time I've got the same steering lock on, I'm not fighting the front, just let the car just roll. It's all on the throttle bounce. Got to keep about 75-80% and just hold it there. Then from here, just fully cut over the right, over the left, over the right again, and then you've got a nice little run up the hill. Just aim for the middle of the track here. No point in driving out here. You see, you just drive over all the curbs on the way through, no problem. So at this kink here, I shift to 6th. In the race, if you're following people and you've got traffic and stuff, in the Mercedes you can just leave it in 5th here and just rev it out, because the marshal hurt here at 9. You're braking and lifting once you go over this crest anyway, so it's not going to hurt you being in 5th here still. It's up to you really. But for the left, once you're over the crest, so now nice straight line, downshift, 50% brake, trail brake it all the way in, early turning. You see I'm already aiming for this curb on the inside. As soon as we actually get to this part of the curb here, so the actual the concrete runoff and not the actual curb, already on power. In the Mercedes you can get away with this super aggressive, cut over the inside and commit to it, hold the lock and let the car naturally run out wide. So if you're, for instance, if you're bouncing on the runoff and you're in the gravel out here on the outside, in the dirt, It's normally because you've just been a bit too aggressive. You've gone power like here. So just hold the throttle a little bit longer. Very key though, you get 100% throttle as soon as possible in the Mercedes. It just levels the car out nicely. Run it all the way out wide. Just be a bit wary of the off-track here. Very easy to get, especially in qualifying. I wouldn't risk it too much in qualifying. I would hold it back a little bit here. Just because this is such a silly off-track to get. Especially if you're a top runner who's running at the front of top splits. Like, last thing you want to do is off-track here and start last. It's so hard to come through the field around this track. So just keep that in mind. Just probably aim for just to run the actual top part of the curb here. Then into Oak Tree, or former Oak Tree. Bring it straight back over to the left. Funny enough, we've got the 3 and a 2 board, same as turn 1. Aiming it around this area to brake. So, into Oak Tree, got the 3 board. You want to be nice and like gentle on the brakes initially, so about 50-60%. Build it up to about 80%, 70% around the 1 board. Down to 3rd gear on the way in. Slowly release the brakes on the way in now. This just allows you to keep a bit more forward momentum into the corner. Last thing you want to do is fully brake down to 2nd gear, brake 70-80% all the way in, and stop the car here. Because of how, like, you forget how long, how far the distance is from here to the next curb. If you stop the car too much here, you try and get on power and try and like almost manipulate how the car's going to have full momentum into this corner. And because of that, it throws you out wide, it makes it all scruffy, and then hurts you onto the back straight. Very, very key to roll the speed in. Right wheel's just touching the concrete curb now. You see, get off the brake, then back on the brake, just to keep that forward momentum going. That's the biggest key here. Up to down to 2nd gear, and let the car just naturally run out wide here. Nothing too much. So I go to chase. Again, similar to turn 3 and 4, right, on the outside. I just keep the car just a little bit away from the curb. I find if you dip a wheel here, it just pulls the car a little bit too far over. And then with that, you can never really get the cut back onto the straight. And because it's the back straight, it's such a long straight, you need to be very, very smooth and very clean on the exit here. Jail brake it all the way in. Release it. On power pretty early, like way before the corner. Biggest thing, again, similar to turn 1, with how the traction and how the rear is. Hold the throttle. 75%. I hold it. As soon as you can get the lock off, then that's when you should think about getting to 100% power. Let the car run up over the outside curb. You see, just like this, absolutely fine. And with that, it gives you a nice, clean launch down the back straight up to the last sector. Just keep it nice and tight over to the right hand side. Just be careful not to dip a wheel. I did it a few times where you dip a wheel. Then into the last sector of the lap. Pretty tricky braking zone. We did have a headwind for data packs this week for these hot laps, so we could go in a bit more aggressive. If you've got a bit of a tailwind, it's around here, braking and lifting, because you want to carry a lot of speed initially into the corner and then stop it on the way into the actual roller coaster section. With the headwind, with that, the 1 board was absolutely fine. You see, you're actually quite aggressive. You almost like flick it in to the corner initially. 50-60% brake while you go down the gears to 3rd. But biggest thing I do, as soon as I dip a wheel up on this outside curb here, then once I'm in a straight line, bit more braking, up to about 80% from here. That's about 70%, sorry. Just because this allows you to slow the car down a little bit more before you go down the hill into the roller coaster. Because if you're using the like 70% brake now while you're going uphill, you're just going to slow down too much. And then because of that, it makes you want to overcommit to the roller coaster section and try and get on power too early. So 50% while you're uphill, plus you've got the headwind like I mentioned. That can change, but with a headwind especially. You can go in quite aggressive on the way in. And as soon as you're at the middle point, so now where you're on the concrete, like the run off here on the outside, a bit more braking now, just to slow the car down. And what you're trying to aim to do here is let the car naturally roll in, aim it to hook on this like concrete runoff bit here next to the curb, midway around the corner. If you're trying to hit it, so if I go chase for instance, don't hit it here, hit it here. If you hit it at this point here, the car's going to go straight. So you need to almost like hook the curb mid-corner. With that, you hook the curb, bring the power in now slowly, and just feed the power, feed it in, hold it. And what you want to do is, as soon as you get the lock off, then 100%. You should not be touching this outside curb. If you're dipping a wheel on this outside curb, you just go on power too early, and with that, you do then run the risk of the car like hitting this curb and going straight. Very key, you can then from this area here. Again, angle it so you can hook onto this curb quite late. So now, and with that 100% power, let the car naturally run out wide. You can hear the car ever so slightly on the runoff. Up to 4th, and once you're on this curb here, like once you're at the end of this curb here, turn in. Quite committed on the way in. A lift and just a downshift on the way in is absolutely fine. Key thing is how much you cut on the way in. So very key. From this lap, I just fully left-hand wheels over the top, right wheels on the track. With that, it just helps you widen the entry up here. As you can see, like if you're just on the tarmac, it's quite a tight and fast entry, and any sort of like room you can get on the way in to help maximize entry is going to benefit you. So very key, cut over the left-hand side curb. Braking once you've like gone over the curb, so you don't bottom out on the curb itself. Braking wise, like 50%, 40%. It's like a little jab. Try to brake it all the way in, but you want to be back on power just before you get to like the middle part of this next curb. So now, up on the power, 100% power, and just commit to it on the exit. Normally, you should get the rotation like this, where the car like comes back to the inside here. At the start of the run on colder tyres, you will have to be a bit more patient. You kind of have to wait on power till, see where the runoff here ends, like this little like concrete bit here ends. Around here is where you want to be back on power. And with that, gives you a nice rotation, no problem. A little bit on the left, and then to the line itself, just keep it nice and tight to the right hand side. Just give you the shortest run. And with that, that is a hot lap for this week.